Welcome to another episode of Estate Planning Nightmares and How to Avoid Them. This is a show which highlights the importance of estate planning and why everyone needs to do it. And of course, the unfortunate consequences of what will happen far too often if people have not planned. I'm your host, John Braddock, the author of Click Here When I Die, and the founder of My Life and Wishes, the Legacy Vault, an online planning and document storage solution created specifically to make things easier for those you love. Today, my friends, I'm excited to introduce you to my friend, David Taylor. David is the owner of Twin Falls Estate Planning up in the great state of Idaho. He is the most irreverent attorney you'll ever meet, which is probably why he and I get along so well. He hates the way government spends money and wants to make sure the government doesn't get a dime more than it has to when someone dies. I love that mission.
Thanks. Yeah.
He also hates court and controversy. You might wonder why he became an attorney, and so does he, frankly. But rather than solving difficult legal problems, David loves helping people plan for the future and to help them create a legacy. David and his wife, Kellie, in his spare time, whatever he has of that, raised 8-year-old boy and girl twins, Shane and Korie. David resided in the Boise area for most of his life, attended Boise State University, where he learned more about football than anything else. And in 2018, after completing law school at Concordia School of Law, his family settled down in Twin Falls. Twin Falls Estate Planning was recently voted as Idaho's best estate planning firm. So congratulations on that. And welcome, David.
Thanks. Yeah.
And how are you doing today?
I'm good. We're at a good point in Idaho where spring has happened and everyone's happy for about 6 months, and then we'll be miserable for another 6 months. But we're at the beginning stages of being happy.
I hear you. As a lot of our listeners know, I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona now for the last 5.5 or 6 years, I guess. But prior was in Wisconsin. And Wisconsin's a lot like Idaho. 6 months of joy and 6 months of, why do I live here?
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, I always love talking about passion, the why behind people do what it is that they do. And I know we touched on this briefly in your bio, but will you elaborate on why you chose to be an estate planning attorney and why it's so important to you to help people plan and create a legacy?
Yeah, I would say for me, my estate planning journey began at the beginning stages of my legal career, which I found I'm in the minority on that. Most other attorneys practice litigation, they didn't like litigation, or they grew out of litigation, and so they said, hey, we should look into estate planning because that sounds like it's something different, and I'd rather prevent problems than solve problems. But for me, what happened was I majored in English writing. And when I was in law school, I wanted to connect some dots and find a way to use my skills in writing. And so I happened to call an estate planning attorney. And I was able to intern with an estate planning attorney, pretty established attorney, for about 1.5 years. And that's where I really grew to love estate planning. And then after I completed my internship there, that attorney basically said that I needed to go become a real attorney. Right. He said that you really need to explore other areas of law. You need to go to court because that will shape you into being a better attorney. And so that's what I did. And so I spent some time doing estate litigation as well as other civil litigations as well. And it turns out I hated it. And I'll use the H word on that. I hated it. And turns out not only did I hate it, my wife hated it. And, my bosses hated me. The assistants hated me. I felt like the court hated me. It was just a very toxic environment. And I decided one day that I had enough, and I was pretty new into my practice, but just thought I had the experience to go into estate planning. And like I said, it was a little earlier than others, but I started a practice having never been in a business owner before. Didn't have a lot of legal experience anyways, and got the training and the tools that I needed to help expedite my training. And ultimately, what I fell in love with was helping people prevent problems. And I found that's my mind just works that way. I can sit there and talk to people and come up with these weird solutions that might happen later on down the road, and be able to prevent them. And generally, what I tell people is I'm a problem preventer, not a problem solver. And I like doing that a lot more. So that's how I got into estate planning. Mostly just by making the right call. I think I can attribute a lot to that.
Oh, I love it. And yeah, you're right. I talk with so many people, and I mean, estate planning is just such an amazing area of law because it's so proactive. It's designed to prevent fights. It's designed to keep people out of court. Whereas so many other areas of law, it's all about the fight, right? Family law and being in courtrooms and those things. And I recently was speaking with an attorney in the Chicago area who is transitioning his practice from just family law after 17 years and moving into just estate planning. He said he was just so tired of the fighting that goes on in the process. So yeah, it's such a proactive area. So, and obviously you're crushing it, being named the best estate planning firm in Idaho. So congratulations on
Yeah,
that.
we're pretty honored to do that, get that. And yeah, it's been really great for us to have that honor.
Oh, absolutely. Well, hey, the show is called Estate Planning Night. And people ask me, why do you name it that? And the short answer is what I've learned through all my years, and trust me, there's been a lot of years, is that the best way to get people to think about things is through storytelling, right? And the stories aren't necessarily to scare them, although sometimes they are, but to get them to understand the reality of what may happen without proper planning. And with your experience in helping families and building legacies, I know you've seen a lot of the good and the bad and the ugly that can happen. So as you and I were talking before we started recording, can you share a story or two that might be eye-opening to the audience and to help them maybe think about their own situation?
Yeah, I have a story or two, and let me just also echo your comments about the power of stories and estate planning. Just two quick thoughts on that, and then I'll definitely get into the stories. One thing is these stories are it's almost like our way as attorneys of reading opinions from judges. We were taught in law school to read opinions from judges, right? That's what I was taught to do. You read I don't know how many court cases and interpreted what the judges did and how the Constitution reads and how to interpret the laws. As estate planning attorneys, we don't get that. We don't get the Supreme Court handing down decisions and we have to interpret them. Instead, what happens is we get stories. We get stories of things that have happened to other estate planning attorneys or to probate attorneys or to clients. I have countless times where clients come into me and the first thing they tell me is, here's what happened when my mom or dad died. And then it ends with them saying, I don't want that to happen to my family. So one thought I had on that is just the power of stories, and that for estate planning attorneys, so important to learn these things because then that way we can adapt our processes. The other thing with stories is I think it helps create an awareness. What I often tell my clients is that people don't even know if they need an attorney. I would even say, John, sometimes people don't even know that I am an attorney. Okay, I just had a client who has been with me for about 2 years, and they came to me and said, they described some legal problem that they had during the year, and they didn't call me about it. And I said, you could have called me about that. They said, oh, we didn't know you were an attorney. Okay, so it's a little bit different for us, and because people don't know if they need an attorney when it comes to estate planning. It's not like a divorce case or a criminal case where they're going to call an attorney. It's just a matter of which one. And so I use these stories to help demonstrate things to clients. It's powerful and it's real, so they understand. Um, yeah, that estate planning should happen. And what I often tell people, as I'll demonstrate here in a minute, is that the most important thing to understand is that if you don't have an estate plan, you have one done for you. And I think a lot of people miss that because they come into my office or they'll call me and say, gosh, it's real simple, David. I pass away and here's what happens. And I said, great, but I don't know if the government expects that to happen. Yeah, let me start by sharing something that happened to an ex-spouse. I had a situation where uh, uh, of course divorce is unfortunate, and well, I guess it can be unfortunate depending on whose side you're on. But I had a situation where an ex-spouse was essentially denied access to her deceased ex-husband's email account. Okay, so this is somewhat strange because you would think in a state administration that she would be able to access these accounts and help wind up his affairs, but that's not what happened. So John, the thing that happened in this particular case is it's a little, as with most stories, it's a little peculiar what happened, but this couple essentially divorced and they had two minor children. And there was some money that was owed for alimony support and things of that nature. And in a very long story short, the person who came to see me was the ex-spouse and the heirs of the estate, because there was no estate plan. The heirs of the estate were two minor children, and she believed that by virtue of the divorce decree, that she had the right to inherit the house. And again, I won't go into the details on that, but this was already a very peculiar case that involved several $1,000s in legal fees, a few court hearings, because I showed up to the court and explained to the judge what we're doing, and the judge didn't like it. And so the judge ordered another attorney for the minor children to make sure that everything we were doing was above board. And so we finally overcame all these hurdles and eventually got the court to accept that my client ex-wife was going to be the personal representative of the estate and that she was going to inherit the house pursuant to the divorce decree. So then after months of getting that straightened out, then the administration began. And so from what I understand of what happened is at some point during the administration, she felt it was important to find emails from the decedent, because then that way she could find accounts and she could be able to track down some assets a little bit better. And what do you think happened is she was married to him, so she tried logging into his Gmail account from Google, and the password was not as she remembered it. She tried doing forgot password, tried going through all the steps on there, and nothing was working. Now, in her situation, she was fearful of calling her ex family. She wasn't exactly liking the idea of having to call her ex mother-in-law and ex brother and sister-in-laws, trying to find passwords. And so in her decision making, she decided that she was just going to submit a claim through Google. So apparently there's a whole way to try and access someone's email account. And I don't know exactly what she did wrong, but somehow in the process of trying to access a deceased person's Gmail account, she identified that she was the ex-spouse. And once she identified that she was the ex-spouse, it did not matter what happened, what documents or what paperwork she submitted after that. Google shut her down. She tried providing the letters testamentary, the court-approved documents saying that she's the personal representative. She tried supplying death certificates. And as far as I know, she was never able to access that email account. And again, just seems like once she alerted Google that she was the ex-spouse, they blocked her from it.
Wow. And so even though she's a personal rep,
which took a journey to get there. Yep. So she got through all that.
Mm-hmm. Right. But they still wouldn't do it because she's the ex. So, and you don't want to be misleading, right, in these kind of things. But had she maybe left out the part where she was the ex, maybe it'd have been an easier process. But it blows my mind that, Google will still shut her out, even with the proper documentation as being personal representative. Now, I've never, read my terms and conditions on Gmail. Most people probably haven't, but there got to be something buried deep down in there.
I think so too. And you have to give some credit to institutions like Google or banks. I mean, they're trying to protect people's information, and there's a whole bunch of scams and frauds that are out there. And if you take a second to reflect on how powerful it could be, if I took your phone, John, and it was unlocked and I got your emails, there's just numerous things that could happen just by having your access to your email. So I understand that they're trying to be protective. But yeah, again, going back to the whole estate planning. Now just a quick note, a will, let's say that the decedent put together a will. I mean, that would have been half the battle, right? We maybe would have been able to overcome some of the things with the court and so forth, but still she would have had a hard time accessing his email account. And that's why I'm a big proponent of services, like My Life and Wishes, where you gotta tell us where your passwords are. You gotta tell us about your digital assets, because if not, that you could potentially have things locked up. I share this story constantly so clients understand that whatever you use, if it's a digital platform or you put it in a notebook, you got to make sure that when you pass away, someone knows how to find your passwords.
It's so true. Our digital assets are so important. And, a recent study indicated that per one email address, it's associated with 130 digital identities.
Yeah.
So here's the shocker. So I'm an old guy, right? So I use LastPass, one password manager. And so when that study came out about a year and a half ago, I thought, man, this seems like a lot. And so I logged into my LastPass to see how many login credentials that I had in there. At that time, which was September of 2022, I had 457. So,
wow.
and you think about it, and so I appreciate the shout out to our platform, how important it is to share, your digital identities with people and give them access. I hear from so many people who are still struggling to take down Facebook accounts from family members who are deceased, because while Facebook does have a legacy contact that you can put in, a couple of things have to happen with that. Number one, first, after I die, which hopefully isn't for a lot of years, whoever I named as my legacy contact has to remember they were my legacy contact. Then they still have to go through the process with Facebook of providing them the information they need, including death certificates, to hand it over.
Yeah.
I find it a little easier to make sure my loved ones know these are my login credentials for Facebook. And when I die, I want you to log in and delete my account, so that you don't get a reminder every year on my birthday, my kids, hey, wish dad a happy birthday. I don't think they want that on Facebook. Oh gosh. Well,
it's disturbing. I think we'll have those accounts that we might have followed, and yeah, it's disturbing.
Right. Now, there's some people out there, and I've heard from people, it's like who utilize our legacy vault and put things in there. And they've said to me, John, I've got some websites that I go to that I really don't want family to know about. Is there a way to expunge those so that family doesn't see those ones? It's like, well, we'll put that on a future development list. But, oh God,
John, if you can somehow tap into that industry in any way, then I think you'll be all right.
Right?
Oh goodness.
Hey, but as I always say, some secrets shouldn't be taken to the grave. Okay, some probably should, but some secrets shouldn't be taken to the grave. Like in our case, where there was a safe deposit box that no one knew about that took a long time to find. And in this particular case, the you know, the password being taken to the grave, and the ex not being able to find it. So I love talking about secrets that shouldn't be taken to the grave. And I know you shared with me a story, um, which is, I think, one of the epitomes of some secrets shouldn't be taken to the grave. So can you share a little bit about that story?
Oh yeah, I've seen it a few times. As you can imagine, I don't know what it is. If I can say this comment, probably not, but it seems to be men. We for some reason have these secrets, and I don't necessarily mean to revert back to the industry that you were referring to earlier. I, for example, had one client who had some gold buried in his backyard, and he told his wife that in a meeting and said, "By the way, this is where this gold is buried. How would we have ever known?" But recently, I had one where the husband had some businesses. Um, Now, it's interesting what happened and in the situation, because I don't know if he kept it a secret or if his wife was just ignorant, to be candid, or if he just never told her. But I had a situation. I did not do this estate plan, but I did receive the administration side of it. So the spouse, this wife came to me, grieving widow came to me and said, my husband passed away. He was a surgeon, so he had some wealth, and she said he had a surgeon, and I don't. He was a surgeon, and he had some assets. I really don't know about them. I really don't know anything about what he did outside of the him being a surgeon, and one business she knew about, he did own a restaurant. And she was pretty lost and confused, and fortunately she had a good financial advisor, and the financial advisor sends her a list of the assets that was reported to him, and there was three names on there that she didn't recognize, and it turns out those were all businesses. And so the husband had a real estate company for short-term rentals, a real estate company for long-term rentals, and then a construction company. Oh no, sorry, not a construction, multi-dwelling unit company. These were not big multi-million dollar companies, but they were companies nonetheless that had rentals and had properties. And so she looked at those and says, "Oh, those sounded familiar to me. I just didn't understand what was happening. I didn't understand those were businesses. I didn't understand that because she didn't see the finances, and so she was kept in the dark about what was happening with that. And what happened with this process is at first she came to us pretty frightened about what she would have to do. And one of her first questions to me was, "Can I manage the estate and close down accounts and otherwise administer the estate?" And I told her the price for doing that, and she politely declined. But I put it back on her, and I said, you're stronger than you think. It looks pretty dismal at the moment, and there's a lot on your plate that you weren't expecting. But I imagine, if you start somewhere, that we can get there. And so one of the first things I asked her was, whom do you know? Whom did your husband talk to often? Because I bet you he's probably a business partner. And then we looked on the state registry, and we got some names, and she recognized a few names. And I said, you start there. Now, over the course of about 6 months, we worked together and we did an investigation. And by the time the end of the administration had come and gone, she was a business master, right? She took it on, and she decided that she was going to close down these businesses, that she was going to work with the business partners to get them taken care of. And it was just a drastic change. Now, this story is ultimately a success, but it started out as a tragedy, just because for whatever the reason, husband didn't divulge anything to wife. How much different would it have been if he would have kept a list on there, or if he would have said something about the business, but instead she was kept in the dark and just didn't know.
Wow. Wow. And how long did that process end up taking, if you recall, from the day she came in not knowing anything to discovering these businesses, getting things, worked out?
Yeah. I would say that it was about 6 months before she was comfortable with it. Uh, the probate case has been going on for about 9 months. It's getting towards the tail end. And it also took 3 attorneys. So it took me, who was the probate attorney. And then it turns out there was a business attorney. So she went back to that business attorney to help wind up some affairs. And then there was also a farm. This she knew about, but there was a farm out of state. But she had to hire another attorney out of state in order to take care of it. One quick note on that too, as people are always contemplating their estate planning options, keep in mind that the decedent, the husband, had a will. A lot of people, you probably can sense why I try to explain this to people, because a lot of people think a will solves everything. And a lot of people also think a trust solves everything. A comprehensive estate plan, in my opinion, is its purpose is to make things as seamless as possible when someone passes away, such as a listing of your assets and a listing of important people that we may need to contact when you pass away, such as the case with this.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And including succession plan on those businesses and things of that nature. Less attorneys involved, less expense, less time, hopefully, in the process.
Right. And a lot of people get sticker shock when they see the price to do an estate plan, but whatever the price was to do the estate plan up front would have saved an attorney fees in the end and would have caused a lot less heartache and headache.
Yeah, and I don't know your price points up there and the other attorneys and everything else, but I'm going to just guess, okay, go out on a limb here, that pushing a year in probate, 3 attorneys involved, their fees and expenses far exceeds the somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 it would have cost to have the estate plan done correctly in the first place.
Yeah, I would say I think my fees alone hit five figures.
Yeah, not shocking. It's what I tell people all the time. I said you could spend $3,500 now and have an estate plan, or you can wait till you die, let your family spend $35,000 in fees, and year and a half, 2 years in probate. You choose.
Sure, and let's even say just for a minute, just for a minute, let's say that the cost of 3 attorneys was the same cost of doing an estate plan. Well, how much better would have been the estate plan? She probably would have gladly paid 5 figures to get an estate plan done if that were applicable, just so that she didn't have to go through all that.
Oh, exactly. And
I say that mostly for my accountant-minded friends who always look at it at dollar and cents and, hey, we can save money here, or this is going to cost the same. Yeah, it may cost the same on the fiscal sense, but keep in mind there's also a moral sense that you need to account for as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then and I don't know any accountant who put the right number on what the time cost the individual.
Yeah.
Time away from work, time going through process, everything else. So yeah, proper planning saves a lot of money. It saves a lot of stress, saves a lot of heartache. So wow, a couple of great stories, Dad. I really appreciate that. Say, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience, or is there something like, man, I wish you asked me this question?
No, I would say just to echo some of the things we said is, man, we just need to get the importance of estate planning out there. I think that so many people overlook it, so many people undervalue it. We live in a world where people try and do things online. I, for example, just had some clients yesterday that I felt that I failed on because they signed up for this estate plan, and then they did some research online and came back and said, we just really need a simple will. That's all we need. And I said, well, why do you think that? And they said, because we looked at online and it turns out it's not going to be as bad as we thought. Well, then why don't you have the internet do your estate plan? Because that's, a lot of value has to be given to legal practitioners, to estate planning attorneys who are out there in the trenches dealing with estates and getting these stories. And so, anyways, I just wanted to go back and say, John, just I appreciate making the awareness of the estate plan for potential clients, for current clients, because I think that's my message to all that I can, is that there is an estate plan done for you, and it's probably not ideal. And if you took shortcuts getting your estate plan done, it's probably not going to be ideal either.
Absolutely. And as you know, I'm on a personal mission to help 1 million families avoid the potential nightmares that await them. And we do that through our platform, and we do that through great partners like you, and working with estate planning attorneys across the country. And we do it through this show. This show is just about education and getting people to think. And so I really value your time and those things. But I do have one final question for you, and it's a fun one. So clearly you are an extremely busy man. You're running a very successful estate planning practice. You and Kellie are raising a young family. So what's your favorite way to unwind after a long and stressful day, if you can share?
Sure, I'm happy to share it. I don't care how cliche it is, but I just love spending time with my family, in particular my kids. And you mentioned there we have 8-year-old twins, and they just light up my life. I, for example, on Monday took some time off of work, and I was a chaperone for one of their school events, and it was a lot of fun. No disrespect, because I love my dad. I don't ever remember him taking us out on a field trip. And my kids love playing cards, and they love reading, and I just absolutely love spending time with my family, as long as there's no college football on. Maybe let's maybe let's say that. I think I can get away with saying that.
There you go. Well, being a parent of all grown children doing their own thing at this point, I can tell you, I look back and say, you only have 18, and at this point, let's call it 10 summers to remember, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it goes by so fast. In my case, you look back and you're busy during your career and successful. And I did the school field trips, and at the parochial school, lunchroom duties, standing out in the playground, making sure the kids don't hurt each other and those things. But and I'm not saying I miss those years, right? But at the same time, a lot of fond memories. And so, maybe I'd done some things differently, but we only have 18 summers with our kids and our family, and man, it goes by really fast.
Yeah.
So awesome. Hey, lastly, how can our listeners reach out to you if they have questions in general, they need some help with their estate planning matters?
Yeah, of course. The best way to reach out to me for potential clients is to call our phone number, 208-733-7200. What I often tell people, and I hope some practitioners can heed this advice, potential clients just call. I think that might be the hardest part of the estate planning journey, is picking up the phone and realizing that you needed to call an attorney. For those referral partners, come find me on LinkedIn. There's a lot of David Taylors that are out there, so you might have a better chance looking for my law firm, Twin Falls Estate Planning. My handle is David M. Taylor Law, LAW. And I'm happy to connect with any estate planning attorneys, of course.
Awesome. And David, this has been a lot of fun. I always enjoy our conversations, and really, I can't thank you enough for joining me and sharing with our audience a bit about you, your firm, your family, your stories. Certainly been eye-opening, and I, along with our listeners, are certainly grateful for your time. A huge shout out to all of you, our audience, for joining us today. Please feel free to reach out to David if you have any questions or concern about any kind of planning. Make it easy for you. I have included all of David's contact information, his address, phone number, LinkedIn, everything you're going to need in the show notes today. So be sure and reach out. So, as always, my friends, your life is your legacy. So plan ahead and make it a great day.